Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Sacred Self-Worth interview series. I'm Ilana Varro here with my friend Jesse Johnson, who is an amazing coach, money guru, consciousness guru. I'd love for you to introduce yourself in your own words and tell us who you are and what you do.
Thank you so much, Ilana. It's such a treat to be here. I'm so happy to connect with you in this way and be able to share some of my teachings and expertise with you guys. My mastery is in integrating sales and spirituality, money and spirituality. I was trained as a math teacher in New York City public schools. That's how I got into coaching. So I was working with a very different population of people on very different subject matter around math. And at the same time, it was transformational work. And so that's kind of how I got started. At the same time, I was teaching meditation and becoming very serious about my spiritual practice. And I wanted to bring those two things together. When I did that, this is what emerged. It's like the need in the world right now is for more and more greatness, more and more impact from our spiritual leadership, from our healers, from our coaches, from our therapists. And those people need to be making money in order to thrive. They need to be making money in order to have the impact that they're capable of having. And so that's my mission.
I love it. I love that. And so that's a perfect little segue into what we're talking about today is how spirituality can help have self-worth, let your worth flow, love yourself, accept yourself, and how that impacts your business and your income. A lot of people, just think I can just go do a job, make money, but really how you connect to yourself and how you show up in the world, and the more you work on yourself, that improves what you're capable of. Do you find that that's true?
100%. I mean, I think it's a direct correlation. It's not even a proportional one. It's this is part of why I have done this work, because the money piece shows us where we are limiting our own sense of self-worth. And I just want to be clear. When I say that there's a direct correlation, I don't mean that necessarily people who make more money are worth more than people who don't. That's not at all. But they think they're worth it. They think they're worth that amount. That's why they're making it.
Yeah.
And so when we start to do this work around money, it's very tender. This is part of why money, the topic of money, the subject of money is so vulnerable for people, because it goes right to that self-worth piece. Wherever we are feeling lack in ourselves, wherever we are doubting ourselves, wherever we feel less than 100% worthy, it shows up in our bank account.
Do you have any examples of that?
We could talk about everyone we know.
Uh-huh.
It's literally every single person. So I'll give us some examples of some of the clients that I work with. Everyone that hires me is an amazing master of their practice. So I work with acupuncturists, Thai yoga therapists, coaches, vocal healers, all kinds of people who are doing all different kinds of healing work, and they are masterful at what they do. That's not what they need help with. We're always growing, we're always getting better at what we do, but that's not their struggle. When they are not bringing in money to actually support themselves in thriving, every single time, the reason underneath that is because they don't feel at some level like they deserve to charge that. They don't deserve to bring in that kind of money. They don't even know who they would be if they allowed themselves to receive that much. And part of this, I think, also comes from this program that it's been passed down to us from our culture and society. And then it's embedded in our family as well. If we come from middle class, which still most people are kind of hanging out in that, our culture is a manifestation of that. It says that making money is either really, really hard, or you have to be really, really special, or you have to sell out, be a bad guy.
Interesting. Yeah.
So it goes directly sort of counter to the self-worth stuff.
Yeah. And people want it, but at the same time, it feels bad or wrong or so far out of reach. It's not like a pleasant, joyful, like, oh, I have money and I can be generous and I can live a full life. It's kind of like I want it, but ugh, doesn't feel good.
Hearing you say that was so cool too, because you just modeled actually the kind of alternative. And this is a tool to offer your audience here,
Yeah.
because one of the first ways to work with money in a different way is to cultivate a positive relationship with whatever you've got going on right now. And to practice that gratitude that you just kind of came into. And everyone that was watching, I'm sure you can see like Ilana's kind of whole body and her face and her physical expression changed.
Yeah.
She was already pretty like juicy. You were already looking at her. But then it just got even more because you were practicing that, like feeling abundant, like I have so much to give.
Yes.
That's the truth of all of us all the time.
Yeah.
We can't be living in the world and that not be true, but it's a choice to turn our perception to that. And so that's a huge tool to start you're wanting to shift your relationship with money, to just begin with practicing gratitude and appreciation for whatever it is that you do already.
Yeah, I love that. Are there other tips or like are there little tricks that you like to go to when people start to have or a poor relationship to money or a challenging relationship to money is present? How do you get in there to show them that there's a different way?
The first question that I ask anyone that I'm talking to about money in any context is what they want. So, and that can take a little digging depending on who I'm talking to. Some people are really connected to their desires. They just have to be asked. And other people, a lot of us have been trained to want less because disappointment is painful. So, if you are a person who struggles to really claim the truth of what you want, then that's the first piece. And you could do it with food. Like, what do you want for dinner? If you could have anything, what would you eat? And then do that same practice with money. So if you could have any amount of money in your bank account right now, really, truly, anything, and feel really good about it, like what would that number be? And if you knew that you could have that number and it would just benefit everyone else in the world, if you knew you could have that number and do it with joy and grace and ease, if you knew you could have that number from doing the service that you most love to do in the world, what would you choose?
Love that. Yeah. What are blocks that you tend to see? Are there patterns of what comes up to get in the way?
Yeah, and I mean, it's why I was so excited to jump on this call with you, because the self-worth piece, I think, is such a huge, huge component. Most people think that there will be a negative consequence for bringing in the money that they want. So again, that first question, like, what do you want? That might be tender, but eventually people can come to a truth about what it is that they truly desire. And from there, for the truth is that for a lot of people, like, that shifts things. Because once you understand what you want, then you can move in that direction. Before you know what you want, like, if you're not thinking, so that's the first block, is not allowing yourself to want what you want.
Okay. Because not feeling worthy?
Say that again.
Because they don't feel worthy of having it?
Yeah, or it hasn't even occurred to them. I mean, when I was teaching high school math, I actually felt like I was living a pretty abundant life in New York City. Like, all things considered, I was doing pretty well. But it just didn't occur to me that I could do more, that I could have more. I had never seen anyone really close to me that I resonated with do that. And so I didn't perceive it as a choice that I was making. And nobody ever asked me, how much money, Jessie, do you really want to make?
Yeah. So who asked you that question, or how did that shift?
When I knew I wanted more. I'm good at wanting more. That's one of my areas of mastery.
It's one of my favorite words, more.
So, and I've practiced that, and I was good at that to start with. So I knew that I wanted more. And so I was working within the education field to have more impact, to have more leadership, to use more of my skill set. And I wanted more money to come along with that. It just made sense to me in that within reason, I had an idea in my mind. And so as soon as, what happened is that I found out that a colleague of mine had gotten a coaching job, coaching science teachers.
Ah.
And he told me what they were paying him. And I was like, you can do that? Well, I freaking want that. I just didn't know it was an option before. But as soon as I knew it was an option, okay, great. I know that I want that. So that was the first turning point. I actually, before that, also I kind of went starving artist approach when I first left college, and that didn't work for me. I was really unhappy. I was stressed out all the time. So, that also set me up. Making money for me has been important enough that I was able to develop this urgency. So that's the second answer to your question, I think, is a lack of urgency. And that's connected to self-worth. But
about that?
In order to bring in more money this month than I did last month, I have to actually care about it. And a lot of people, so connecting with desire, one of the things that I coach people around is making sure that they're speaking the truth. So there's a theme. A lot of people, if you went out and polled people on the street, would you like to win the lottery? Most people would say, yeah, not really having thought too much about it. If you look at statistics about what actually happens to lottery winners, their lives take a downturn.
Yeah.
And typically they end up back to their financial set point within a couple of years, and some of them commit suicide before they get there. It's a traumatic experience for them. Why? Yeah. Because they don't actually have the desire for more money. What they have a desire for is to not worry about money. Those are two totally different things. So let me say that again, because it's really important. The desire to actually have more money is totally independent of the desire to not worry about money.
Yes.
Everyone watching this right now can decide right now, I am worth living a life where I don't worry. I am worth living a life where my joy trumps every worry that I have. That doesn't mean I'm covering my eyes and not paying attention to my life. I'm attending to things. I'm just joyful inside it. I deserve that.
Yeah.
Because I'm alive.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that has nothing to do with the amount in the bank account. You can see that. There's tons of people with tons of money who are not happy.
Yes.
Who feel worried about losing their money.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. So that it's an independent variable.
I love that. Such a good distinction and so true. Yeah. And so if someone decides to be on one side or the other, what does that look like?
Tell me what the one side or the other is.
Meaning not worrying. I don't want to worry about money versus I want to have money.
Can I draw something?
How does that show up in their lives? Yes, please.
Okay. I use this tool all the time, and I just realized as you were saying it back to me, I was like, oh, this is going to be helpful. So we've got worried, or we've got not worried.
Yeah.
What did you say?
Peaceful.
Yeah.
At peace.
Yep. Yeah, there's a lot. We could go really into that. In fact, that's another good thing for people to go into. What would it be?
Exactly. Pick your word of what suits you specifically.
And we could actually make this, but let's just say less than the need and more than enough. Okay, so most people, this is, I took this from Punnett squares, from chemistry, and you look at how, okay. So most people conflate ideas that are actually not related to each other. So just for example, when I was little, my parents were very rule abiding when they drove their car. And they were so consistent that I thought that when they turned the turn signal on the car, that turned the car.
Huh.
Right? There was a correlation because my parents did it every time. But as we know now as adults, actually you can have the turn signal on and not turn the car. You can turn the car without the turn signal. There's not actually a causal relationship.
Yeah.
So this is the same. And most of us experience that when we have less than what we need, we're worried. And if we just had more than enough, then we think we'd be peaceful.
Yes.
So most people kind of turn this, what's actually 4 different possibilities, into 2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they conflate those things. So it's really important to kind of break down, this is mindset work. So it's like, actually, there are plenty of people, you can go down on Venice Beach and talk to them, who have less money than they really need. They're needy. They are asking for money, begging, they don't have a place to stay, whatever. But some of them might be worried, but not all of them. You can find many examples. I just came back from India. There's tons of people who have way less than what I would say they need. And they're not worried about it.
Yeah.
They're engaged in their spiritual lives. They're doing their thing. They're making the best of whatever situation is coming to them. And similarly, especially in the Western world, you can see tons and tons of examples of people who have really, truly millions of dollars, so much more than they need. A friend of a friend had $100 million. He lost half of it when the stock market crashed.
Wow.
So he then had $50 million. So everybody can just imagine right now, just as a starting point, what it would be like to tomorrow have $50 million assets. He killed himself because he was so worried about the fact that he'd lost that money overnight. And, you can have compassion for that too, but just to reality check, it's got nothing to do with the money in the bank.
Yeah.
Is this helpful?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's so true that most people just stay in that top left, bottom right. And it's so important to see those additional 2 spots of where you can land. So I would imagine that most people would want the more than enough and peace.
Yeah.
So how do you see going to that place? How do you get there?
So I would say we've talked about it, but this is an important thing to put together. So the first is to understand that that's what you want.
Uh-huh.
Just before this call, I was having a conversation with a coaching client who hasn't fully, she intellectually gets this picture that we've just drawn, but she hasn't experienced it yet. And so that's a hard place for her, because she has to step into faith. She has to, this is the urgency piece too. She has to want the more than enough and the peace. She has to want that more than she wants the familiar paradigm. And this is a very common block for people. Most people would rather be right than have what they want.
Yeah.
So they look for stories to and I shouldn't even say they, this is a human phenomenon. So we look for stories to justify what we think is true. Even when an opportunity to have what we really want is directly in front of us.
Yeah.
So we'll choose the other stuff because it looks familiar. We know what that looks like.
Yeah, definitely. So do you think someone who has, and I don't even know how to quantify self-worth. Do you say more self-worth, less self-worth, more positive, more negative self-worth? How do you measure or scale self-worth?
I love that question. So I don't know if this is an answer, but this is the thing that came through, and then I'm open to, let's poke at it.
Yeah.
What I know is that in doing work around money, I and everyone that I know that has done this work, both coaching clients, friends, peers, colleagues, and my own coaches, that doing the work around money, which is it's a really cool thing because it's energetic, it's pretty abstract, and at the same time you can put a number to it. So it's got this concreteness that you can measure. So that speaks to your question. That when we do the work around money, when we actually get clear about what we want and start taking action to bring that into our lives and experience how easy it is, it changes the subconscious programming that we have that tells us that we're not worthy, that we can't, that it's not possible, or it's not possible for us. And so part of the reason that I have gotten so passionate about money Because before doing this work, it wasn't like I didn't start my business to teach people about money, but as I did the work on myself, I realized like, oh, this is the most powerful transformational tool that I've ever experienced. And I've gone all over the world, done self-transformation work for really my whole life, but certainly the last 20 years, like very seriously. And this material around money has done more to like from the ground up, like shift what I believe about myself, what I know myself to be capable of, how supported I feel, how resourceful I know I can be, how many resources I know there are for me. Like all that comes with the work around money, not necessarily money, right? As we've said, there's tons of people who have tons of money, more than enough money, and don't feel supported or don't feel, so it's not the money itself, it's the conscious work around building a healthy, aligned, deliberate relationship with money.
I love that. And what's an example of the conscious work around money rather than just I need to earn more money?
So one of the things that I've been doing this with my clients, but I just put it on my blog recently, is a visionary budget. And I actually think this might be a fun thing for everyone that watches this to do, whether they're an entrepreneur or not, whether they're, starting their own business or whatever, just to play with it, to see what happens. So a visionary budget is very different than a traditional budget. Traditional budgeting is very important, essential tool for anyone living in the modern world. But the point of a traditional budget is to work within the means that you anticipate generating. And so for me, with my fixed income back when I was teaching or coaching teachers, that meant like, here's the amount that I'm going to bring in my paycheck every month. Here are all the things that I need to buy. And I'm going to make those two things match. I have to make what I'm spending total or less than the amount I'm bringing in.
Yeah.
Visionary budgeting is very different. Visionary budgeting is coming from this principle that we've been talking about this whole time, which is connecting to the truth of what you want. So if anything were possible, yes it is, and any amount of money could come to you, because it can, what would you spend it on? And so the tool guides you through this process. It's very simple, but it's a list, like all the different things that you could possibly spend money on.
Love it.
If you had it to spend, And so for some people, that's like a luxurious lifestyle. For some people, that's huge service projects, feeding millions of children in India, it can look like anything. And so that's a huge piece to, again, practice working with desire and just letting yourself want what you want. And then total up what all those things add up to. And then see what that number is. People are always surprised. So for me, one of the first things that I added to my list was flying first class. I want to always fly first class, even when I fly across the, internationally.
Yeah.
So that's a whole different category of income. And so then the work of a visionary budget, once you've done that visioning, is then coming from the mindset that if you want it, it's here. You wouldn't want it otherwise. And whenever I talk about this, I like to say that I never think about doing neurosurgery, ever, except when I tell this story. Right? It just doesn't come into my mind. I don't wonder why aren't I pursuing medicine? And I've never thought about it. I've never dreamed about it. I've never had any inkling that I should be doing that. I respect neurosurgeons. I think they're amazing. That's about it,
Yeah.
So my understanding is that when we want something, whether it's like Thai curry or $1 million in 2018, that we're wanting that for a reason. We're wanting that because it wants us. We're wanting that because we're being called into a level of greatness, a level of expression, a level of clarity that we haven't touched before. So that's what the visionary budget is designed to kind of help people tune into.
I love that. Yeah, I don't think many people think in that way. They think more, here's my cap and I need to subtract, rather than add, and let's see what that totals.
Yeah.
That's a really great flip. I like it a lot.
Yeah, and then the work, the hard work of traditional budgeting is staying within your budget. And you could say that the hard work of visionary budgeting is the same thing. It's like once you come up with that total monthly income that you want to bring in, then what are you set up to do right now that could bring in that kind of money?
Yeah.
And that's really where I help people, because
Yeah.
sometimes we need help with that.
Absolutely. And that's kind of been a theme of this whole series is, we need support, we need community, we need to learn new skills, because self-worth doesn't just show up, and money doesn't just show, I mean, it can, but like you said, it doesn't last, it doesn't have long lasting fulfillment. And so you need mentors and teachers and people to guide you through, especially if this is a completely foreign concept, like money mindset, abundance, believing I can have whatever I want and feel worthy of having it. That seems very foreign to a lot of people. So that's why I'm so happy to have you be part of this, is so that people can hear this message and, follow you and continue to hear this message, because really bringing it into your consciousness and surrounding yourself with people that are in this mindset is just vital.
I totally agree. It's very important. And this is why I love working with spiritual teachers and healers and therapists and coaches, because they have that transformational spiritual lens, whether they call it spiritual or not, they have that. Yeah. And that comes from, any spiritual tradition that you look at, that's one of the first teachings. You need high level association with people that are doing the same thing that you are.
Yeah.
Otherwise it's like, you're the like one flower growing in the desert. It's very lonely. You look around and you're like, oh, maybe I'm not supposed to be here. It's very easy to go into doubt. And if you don't have a support system to kind of help keep you in the vibration that you're cultivating, especially when it's new, and it's a tender place.
Yeah.
And doing this work around self-worth, doing this work around money, I think it's the same work. It brings up our guilt and our shame, because our guilt and our shame are like I'm picturing like the gatekeepers. They're the gatekeepers that keep us small.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And they will fight to the death.
Yeah.
They were built to protect us when we were little. They had a purpose initially.
Yes.
But as adults, we don't need them anymore. They're outdated, but it's very, very emotional often to confront that stuff, to be willing to touch and like look at what that's hiding.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so many things intertwined. It's not, like we've been saying this whole, conversation, it's not about the money, the dollar amount. It's the relationship to it, the consciousness around it, the meaning you attach to it, to yourself in relationship to it. I mean, it's very complicated. So I'm so grateful for you being a part of this conversation and really shedding light on the fact that there's so much in this.
I'm so grateful for you.
Yeah.
It's an
so
honor
how
to be
can
here.
people find you? How can they work with you? How can they learn about what you do?
So there's you can reach me on every level. If you're just kind of dipping your toe in the water and wanting a little energetic support, you can follow me on Instagram, Facebook. I have a closed private group. It's free, but I have that on Facebook, and I do a monthly Q&A there every month about this conversation, integrating spirituality and money, as well as just posting like periodic resources and tools. So I think that's a huge resource for people. I also send out a bi-monthly newsletter, so twice a month, with blogs that are also deep, rich, supportive content. The Visionary Budgeting blog is one of those. Awesome. So if you want to sign up for the newsletter, you can do that on my website, which is JessieJensenCoaching.com.
Awesome. I got your email today, Bhakti.
That's right. Yeah, literally like February love theme, and also I just got back from India, so.
Perfect. Very perfect.
And then if people want to do more work together, like if you're wanting to either start a business or take your business to the next level and you want support to do that, I have both group programs and one-on-one work that I do. It's very intensive. The work that I do is it's very serious. So it's not for everybody.
You have to know
But
what you want.
say again.
You have to know what you want, right?
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. But if you feel called to do that, then we'll schedule like a discovery session, have a conversation about it, see if we're a match to work together, and then go from there. My next group starts in April, and it's called Spiritual Sales Mastery. So it's focused on using sales as a spiritual practice.
Perfect. Amazing.
Yeah.
And I think we touched upon the free gift a little bit. Do you want to share a little bit with the audience what your free gift is?
Oh yeah, there's a great meditation called Create Wealth with Ease. It's a guided meditation. It'll guide you through 3 phases. And it's a fantastic resource that you can download, again, from my website.
Awesome.
And we'll send out the gift through
Perfect.
this.
Yeah, there'll be a link. It'll all make sense. Awesome. And how often do you think people should go through that process? Because I know a lot of times I get asked, like, what can I do? What can I do? Do I do it daily? Do I do it monthly? Like, when I want to create change, what do I do?
You know, when it comes to meditation and any of these practices, I think it's so important to treat them like the sacred love expression that they are. So if you're coming at any of this with a whip, or you're like trying to use it as a whip, it's not going to do very much. You know, it's not that discipline doesn't have a place in this work. It does, but this is much more about joy, much more about receiving, much more about allowing. So having said that, I think that you could listen to the meditation every day if you want. And it's designed to be a one-shot deal.
Awesome.
It's designed to like go in, clear something that you don't ever have to go back to. So that's my first recommendation.
Awesome. I love that. I think that's such a great point is, here's the tool. Am I going to allow it, or am I going to, crack the whip and just be harsh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Never force things in life, right? That seems to be a theme.
Yeah. And that's a science. Again, I think that's what spiritual folks are so good at. It's why the spiritual teachers and healers and coaches and those like people who are approaching their business from a sacred perspective are so well positioned to use this material, because they have already a little bit or a lot of that understanding of that sweet spot. Because you do have to take action. I mean, you can't meditate in a cave. I shouldn't say you can't. Most people's purpose is not to meditate in a cave and bring in millions of dollars. Most of us are here to actually offer some physical service and then receive money in exchange. So there's action, and it's uncomfortable for people, but it's not hard. And that's the difference. It's like, you have to be willing to be uncomfortable. You have to be willing to actually get excited about being uncomfortable, looking at your material and using it to go deeper. But not using it to punish yourself and make yourself wrong.
Yeah. Don't make it hard. It's not hard. It might be uncomfortable, but again, really great distinction. It's not hard. It's just uncomfortable and new, and resistance is showing up. Yeah.
Can I add one little thing on that? Because that's such an important point that you shared. I think that this also is a common thread that shows up in people, that most people work too hard.
Yes.
It's easier, and my coach said this to me early on, it's easier to make $50,000 in a month than to make $5,000 in a month. That was my face. What? Wait, say that again. It's easier to make more money than it is to make less. And that is absolutely my experience. Every single time that I've had a major breakthrough in the income that I'm bringing in, it's because I let it be easy. And so that's another tool, is like, so you get your vision, you're clear, I want to bring in this amount of money. How could I do that? And it's essential to ask the question, how could I do that and experience ease in the process?
Beautiful. Absolutely. Absolutely. Such an important little add-on to the end of that phrase. Absolutely. Yeah. A lot of people have blinders up. They forget about that. So love it. Thank you so much for your time. I adore you. You're just adorable, brilliant, connected, inspirational, and I'm really grateful for you being a friend and an inspiration. I'm happy to know you.
Me too. I'm really, really honored to be here. I think what you're doing is so important, and it's just such a pleasure to dive in with you today.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for tuning in. And I hope you're getting a lot out of this, and stay tuned for more. Bye.
Bye.